Welcome to Matters Financial, Geopolitical from a Frontier. Thank you for stopping by. I hope to see you on Saturday at Intercontinental in Nairobi. We serve breakfast from 9:30 a.m. and I'll be speaking about a ton of stuff, geopolitics, global geopolitics. I was comparing 2014 G20 versus 2016. You'll remember in 2014 Putin was an outlaw, and now he's somehow managed to come back, touching on that, talking about the sort of pivot to Asia, what I think it means, Africa, post the rising, and so much more, and looking at the markets throughout. So I'm looking forward to that, and hope to see you there. Macro thoughts. Goldman Sachs forecasts a 3 percentage point US rate increase during a Federal Reserve rate tightening cycle, continuing through 2019. In contrast, derivatives traders are pricing in roughly 50 basis points of tightening over the same period. Home thoughts. Astronomers discover signs of giant planet being born in a star's dust cloud. TW Hydrae is one of the closest young stars to Earth. Took me back to Rumi. We come spinning out of nothingness, scattering stars like dust. And also Don DeLillo in Cosmopolis. There are dead stars that still shine because their light is trapped in time. Where do I stand in this light which does not strictly exist? That's a powerful thought, isn't it? If you love the coast, life in Mombasa will spark some mad wanderlust with fantastic photos. This is interesting. Ping of all devices on the internet and mapping of active IPs. Red equals a high concentration of devices. I like this. It took 12 days to capture this photo of millions of mayflies mating against a starlit sky. And then the world's coolest pop-up bar is serving tequila and hot dogs. And they ask, how do you get some of the world's very best chefs together in one place? It turns out that you mix some drinks and then make hot dogs. Let's move on to political reflections. US election wrap. Clinton's poll trend echoing Brexit's remain. Hillary Clinton trailing Donald Trump by 5 points in Bloomberg's Ohio poll was a shocker. So much so that it shook the Mexican peso. What it wasn't, however, was an outlier. Nate Silver, who's on Twitter, if you're interested in real-time numbers, has upped Trump's odds of winning to 34.4%. Says on Twitter he sees echoes of Brexit here. Clinton's narrowing lead over Trump is a lot like Remain's over Leave at this point, he said. That's not to predict Trump will finish well, as Leave did, but I see people making excuses to treat a clear possibility as a remote one. Bloomberg's Ohio poll was a blow to Clinton after she enjoyed polling advantages nationally and in most battleground states, including Ohio, during much of August, before a September in which she has struggled and more Republican voters may be unifying around Trump. Kyle Kondik, analyst at Sabato's Crystal Ball and author of a book on Ohio's presidential voting, notes divergence in likely voter party ID from other surveys and says Democratic enthusiasm may stink right now and affect response rates. He says that the question is if enthusiasm gap continues for Clinton through election. If so, very bad for HRC. According to Silver, Trump has a 1 in 3 chance of winning the election. It's highly competitive, folks. I'm a buyer of that from a trading perspective. Have a look at the map, Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump. That's again from Nate Silver. Colin Powell in hacked emails shows scorn for Trump and irritation at Clinton. calls Donald J. Trump a national disgrace, lamented while he respected Mrs. Clinton he would rather not have to vote for her, describing the Democratic presidential nominee as having a long track record, unbridled ambition, greedy, not transformational. Trump he called an international pariah. HRC could have killed this 2 years ago by merely telling everyone honestly what she had done and not tie me into it, he said. There's no need to debate it with you now, but Trump is a national disgrace and an international pariah. He is in the process of destroying himself. No need for Dems to attack him. I'm not sure about that. The self-destruction, I think, is proven. He's not going to self-destruct. In fact, the way he handled Hillary Clinton's illness by not gloating about it tells you he can change his tone. Philippines war on drugs. This is from David Inglis. 1,105 killed by police. 2,035 killings under investigation. 17,000 drug users and pushers arrested. 712,848 surrender. Pretty extraordinary. President Duterte, of course, threw a few bricks at President Obama and seemingly has reached out to the Chinese. Have a look at this photograph from the recently concluded ASEAN Leaders Conference when he meets with Li Keqiang. I came across this photograph from 1989, a crowd in Pakistan protesting the publication of Salman Rushdie's satanic verses. And that took me to a piece I wrote in 2012 called The Madding Crowd. And I was talking about what was happening with the Texan Christian preacher who burnt the Quran, and then you had that Benghazi situation. And I also referred to that US Army War College Quarterly of 1997, where the US officer assigned to the Deputy Chief of Staff of Intelligence, charged with defining the future of warfare, wrote, "One of the defining bifurcations of the future will be the conflict between information masters and information victims. Information warfare will not be couched in the rationale of geopolitics, but will be spawned, like any Hollywood drama, out of raw emotions, hatred, jealousy, greed, emotions, rather than strategy, will set the terms of information warfare struggles." And I was asking, what are the consequences of this new 21st century madding crowd? A madding crowd which can be inflamed by a fellow with a camera and an account with YouTube. I said then there are plenty of flamethrowers in a population of 7 billion. Basili has shown that the 21st century equivalent of throwing the match is a camera and the knowledge of how to upload content onto YouTube. Put up a photograph of a crowd celebrating in Benghazi. For world leaders, there's always money in speaking gigs, says Foreign Policy, and have a look at the prices that some of our leaders charge. It's quite interesting. International markets, here's what Twitter looked like after the Wells Fargo account scandal broke. And this is the impact, it's interesting, of social media on banking. I spoke about this previously when I said, bank run before would need you to wander in the bank. Today you can just hit a phone and move the money in a flash. JP Morgan FX Volatility Index, I call it the calm before the storm. Let's move on to currency markets. Let's take a look at those, because we've seen plenty of volatility lately. Euro dollar 112.24, dollar index 95.34. Dollar yen 102.46, Swiss 0.9735, the pound. With the Bank of England speaking, I think today after the rate decision, 132.28. We've come back down again. I'm a bull. I think you buy it with a 127.50 stop. The Australian dollar was last trading at 0.7461. India rupee, where there was talk of a possible devaluation, 66.975, South Korean won 11.2685, Rial 334.34, Egyptian pound 8.88, and the Rand 14.33.85. I'll put up a 1-year chart of sterling. I'm bullish about sterling. I think it's all in the price, and my stop would be at 127.50. Gold last trading at 1321.75 when I checked. I think we're going to go and have a look at 1304 again. Crude oil, now that's an interesting development, $44.20 in New York. I don't see any reason to get pulled up about crude oil at all. But of course, you get these very big rallies. That's the nature of crude oil. Reuters reported that the Indian Finance Ministry has denied a TV report that the government is discussing a possible rupee devaluation. I'll put up a 1-year chart for you of the Indian rupee. And then have a look at the performance of the MSCI Emerging Markets Index. And we've seen a good rally here in 2016. Let's see if it will last. Congo is to appoint a caretaker government until the delayed election. This is on Bloomberg. DRC elections will be delayed until the voter register is updated. And a new government will be appointed to run the nation until the vote, a joint delegation of the ruling party and some opposition members said. President Kabila will remain in power until the vote is held and will in the meantime reorganize the government to include members of the opposition. The Justice Minister and ruling party member Alexis Thambwe told reporters in Kinshasa, "We will manage the country together," he said. An opposition delegation led by Vital Kamerhe said it will rejoin formal negotiations on reorganizing the elections on Thursday. The group suspended participation in the talks on Monday, citing disagreement with a plan by Kabila's ruling coalition to hold local elections before a vote for the executive, a process which they said could take years. Thambwe's announcement may anger many of Congo's largest opposition parties, including Etienne Tshisekedi's Union for Democracy and the coalition of parties backing presidential hopeful Moishi Katumbi, who have boycotted the talks. The parties insist that Kabila must step down when his second term ends in December 19. As required by the constitution, nothing justifies that Kabila stays 1 day longer than December 19, UDPS spokesman Felix Tshisekedi said in an interview in Kinshasa. Delegation did not define how long the revision of the voter register would take and how long the presidential vote will be delayed. The National Electoral Body has previously said it wouldn't be completed until July 2017, meaning Kabila will remain in power until at least October 2017. Let's see how that plays out, but I don't think it's going to play out necessarily in Kabila's favor, although he's TKO'd Moishi, for example, by packing him off out of the country. African bond rally in August, interesting. Gabon did not participate, and we know why, all these issues around the election, but look at Mozambique, had quite a bounce. South African all shares up 3.57% this year, dollar rand 14.3385, in no man's land as it were, but I think it's headed to 14.84. KLM has suspended flights to Cairo amid the country's currency problems, a little bit like Nigeria. EGX 30 is up 16.08% this year. Nigeria all shares down 3.49% this year. Ghana Stock Exchange Composite Index down 10.84% this year. Obama has lifted sanctions from the Ivory Coast, citing progress. This is more than 10 years after the Civil War. Central Bank Governor Njoroge gave a speech at the CBK at 50 anniversary celebrations. The speech link is there, and I'll put up a photograph of him with the president. Equity Bank has said mobile-based loans will be capped at 14.5%. This is a highly disruptive move on the part of Dr. Monge. Equity Bank has interpreted this new law to include all credit facilities extended to customers by such institutions. This includes loans through mobile phones or through other third-party platforms, or collaborations with mobile network operators, credit card facilities, as well as microfinance loans. Equity Group is down 31.75% on a total return basis this year, And obviously this will have a significant impact on earnings. Total interest income was 24 billion shillings at the first half mark. Total interest expense, I can't see that, didn't put that there, but the link is there on Rich Wrap-Ups if you want to go and dig into those results to get a better understanding. So they're going to get topped and tailed. They're going to get topped because they've got to bring the rate of interest down, tailed because they've got to pay a higher rate of interest. And really, if you think of it like a corridor, 7 to 14 or whatever it is, they had a lot of business outside the body of that corridor, so they typically would be expected to suffer. And he's obviously coming back with quite a strong response here. Uhuru secures deal for KCB entry to Somalia after visit. State House said in a statement that President Kenyatta won the concession from Somalia's leadership for KCB to open an office in Mogadishu before the end of the year. KCB Group and CBA had applied for an operating license in the troubled country along Gulf lenders seeking to operate in Somalia, where only 4% of the population is banked, but they are surely all on the mobile phone. KCB already has a presence in Uganda, Tanzania, South Sudan, Rwanda and Burundi, had been considering entry into Somalia, DRC and Djibouti under its strategic plan. KCB share price is down 32.57% this year on a total return basis. The data is also there if you're interested in seeing interest income, interest expenses, and actually calculating what this is going to cost everybody. The IMF's Furusawa said the politicization of monetary policy bears well-known risks for the soundness of the financial system and for credit access, notably higher risk borrowers. Nairobi all shares down 9.86% this year. Trans-Century has rallied a meteoric 147.77% since the 25th of August. East African Portland Cement closed yesterday down 55.61% year to date. NSE 20 is down 20.27% year to date, but 105 points above its low, multi-year low from the 30th of last month. Finally, Al Jazeera English has a story about how Kenyan children learn ballet in Kibera, which is the biggest slum in Africa. Nice photographs. Once again, thank you for stopping by. I hope to see you on Saturday. Entry is free to Mindspeak. We serve breakfast from 9:30. We start at 10 and we finish by 12. And please, if it's your first time or you haven't introduced yourself, please do so. Thank you.